So walking around the neighborhoods is part of, like, you know, pro-travel. I mean, it's pro-travel, pro-expat, because, you know, we do our own homework to figure out the safety aspect of it, right? And it reminds me of when we were walking around outside of the Gringolandia years ago, before any other gringos were doing such things. In other words, they were all going to the same buildings. That's why it was called Gringolandia by the locals. We didn't coin that. Just to say that people came up to us, some of the locals, when we were walking down the street on these outer neighborhoods, which we lived in, by the way, pioneering the idea of blending in as much as you can. And one of the locals drove up to us and said, "What are you doing here? What, do you live here?" She's like, "Where do you live? Where do you live?" And I wouldn't tell her because I didn't know what her intentions were. And she said, "You can't live here." She literally then finally came out and said, "You can't live here." In other words, you can't be here. You've got to be over there in the Gringo neighborhood. You can't live out here. It's dangerous. Of course, we lived there for 6 years, and 5 of those 6 years we had no issues. But of course, we had to get it. Eventually, we had to get a dog. We had to get the razor wire. We didn't have any trouble whatsoever until the very last year, where we started having the prowling several times a week, at night, in the middle of the night. Big, huge problem, and we had to move. So things change, you know, things can change. Things, you just got to keep your ear to the ground, and neighborhoods change. Even after we went to Unguilla, the neighbor, after we were in Unguilla for about a year, the neighbors started putting up a cyclone fence. And I said, "Oh, what's going on? Why are you putting up the fence? And it's safe out here, isn't it?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's been safe, but things change." So I don't know if he had started hearing some prowling at night, but they were putting up a fence all around their property. So things are in a constant flux and a constant change, and we see this in a lot of the places we keep tabs on abroad, and the places we talk about in videos. You know, the RAM magazine circuit, the Retire Abroad Media and Magazine frontline circuit, the exposure that these places get on the internet, and the speed and rapidity by which bubbles and you know, and all the consequences of bubbles, foreigner price bubbles, all the consequences of that create. And therefore, one has to really keep their ear to the ground to understand the pulse of what's happening, because things change so quickly. You know, in other words, we may feel perfectly safe walking around these old neighborhoods with all the graffiti today, but in 3 or 4 years, 5 years, we don't know. Who knows? You know, things could change quickly depending on everything I just said. You know, I mean, just ascertaining at what point within a flux or a cycle or a period in time a place is in, right? Ascertaining, well, what point is it in? Is it safe? And not going to social media and asking on social media, because you're just going to get the, you know, the party line. Yeah, it's safe, it's great. The party line, the RAM party line, you know, with all the shills and everything. So the bottom line is, if I don't feel safe, you know, and it's not about feeling, excuse me, I don't mean to use that term, but if it's either safe or not, or semi-safe. In other words, the level of safety isn't perfect, but it's a level that and that I'm okay with, you know. But whatever that line in the sand is for you, that you say, no, I'm not going to live in this neighborhood if this is happening or if that's happening. You know, if your neighborhood that you're contemplating going into, you don't know, you need to get better information. You know, you need to get good information, solid information. You need to know how to rely on reliable sources to get information. And that's one of the things that we do. And that's how we determine that. That's why we're walking around here in these old graffitied neighborhoods today. But if we were in a neighborhood where the facts presented that we were able to ferret out that it was not safe, then we wouldn't be walking there. So that's the question today, is how do you really know what kind of reliable information you're getting? You know, if all you get is the pumpers, the Rams, and everyone that has vested interest, how do you know what the truth is, and how do you know whether what you're contemplating doing is a good idea or not? You know, I mean, we absolutely would not be here if we weren't sure, if we didn't know. Okay? Wonder what's in there. Is it a museum? Yeah, let's go in there. Let's go in there, yeah. This is the inside of the FABRIKA. Kind of I don't know. FABRIKA means plant. It appears to be a manufacturing that went bust, out of business, and then the neighborhood went downhill. And then they turned it around. They made it artistic and made it a place for young people to come and spend a little healthy quality time. You can see this is the old manufacturing machinery, old redundant machinery that has been put out to pasture, and they just put it to good use.
Is that a sewing machine?
Yeah, it looks like a humongous sewing machine, yeah. It's interesting. Life hands you lemons, you make lemonade, right? So it looks like they have a few artistic stores down here, like they have some clothing down here, and they look like they've got some art that they're applying to the clothing with clothing paints and that kind of thing. It's interesting. It's just like a unique art-flavored clothing. So FABRIKA refers to the neighborhood where the sewing manufacturing plant used to be, and the word sounds like fabric, which is related to sewing and fabric. So FABRIKA also means manufacturing in Latin. But, you know, and then you've got the bumbling Gringo that just goes down the street. I've seen them in Cuenca wearing $2,000 cameras hanging off their neck, walking down the street in offbeat neighborhoods, and I'm going, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this guy must have just got off the plane. And sure enough, he had just got off the plane. You know, you just don't do that. And there was issues still in Ecuador, because we spent a lot of time in Ecuador, 8 years, of people doing these kinds of things, going out into the country, buying property, and showing their wealth like that. And that's just absolutely, some of these places, or any of these places, if you ask me, any of these developing countries, absolutely don't want to be doing that. Doesn't that look like a Halloween haunted house or something?
This whole thing down here does.
So what do you notice that's different about this escalator?
On the other side too.
There's hardly anybody on it. That's what's different. It's not an oddball hour either. It's like 1 p.m. and it's just, Frank and Angie going where no man has gone before, or almost.
A couple people up there.
We should say going where no tourist has gone before. Just like in the old days, Abraham, because of his trust in the Creator, had enough gumption to go out where no man had gone before, out in the desert.
Yes.
Yeah, created a whole nation of free people because he did it, yeah. Where's the sign, welcome to England and Ireland? Oh, okay, I guess that's not...
Britain.
I guess we missed that stop.
ესთეტიკის კაბინეტი ეპილფანი გთავაზობთ სამსხვილიან დიოდურ DE სისტემის ლაზერულ ეპილაციას 2019 წლის გერმანული წარმოების აპარატებით.
We came here in case it didn't feel like you were in a foreign country yet. We needed a shot of real culture. None of that homogenized international stuff.
You're Asia, right there. You're Asia.
There's lots of vans and buses, right? But you can't make out where any of them go because you can't read anything. See what I mean right here, like the back of this bus. The only reason why that's got crystal bed on it is because that's a website. But you see the rest of the writing on the bottom of it, and it's all like that. And by the way, you know, going local has a negative connotation to it, which we've discussed in other videos, which we will discuss again, but it's not about just going local, it's about being savvy, being smart, not making yourself a target for thieves and con men and other things. Wonderful.
Maglava. Did you see the camera?
Yeah.
We're in the University of Georgia.
Look at that chandelier. There's kids in here.
This is for young people. You know, the college students.
Yeah.
They come in here and hang out. So that was the University of Georgia hangout area.
Looks like a restaurant.
Look at that pretty Christmas tree.
Real quick story about beggars. We were in Las Tablas, Panama. There's beggars everywhere. They're here in Eastern Europe. They're in Ecuador. So, but this lady, she was pretty insistent. I usually don't give to beggars that have all their limbs and can see and hear and everything else. So, but this lady, she was following me, and then she pulled out her medical bills. And she went on and on about all these medical bills and how she can't pay them. And, well, long story short, she did the sales job on me and it worked. You know, I gave in. I don't know, guess maybe I got a soft spot somewhere, but I don't know, more of a sucker if you ask me. So I gave her, I don't remember, I think I gave her $3 or something. And you know what she said right after I gave her the $3? She said, "Oh great, thanks, now I can go out to breakfast." And I thought to myself, what was all that song and dance about the medical bills? You know, so anyhow, you know, that's just a personal experience that actually happened, and you know, do what you will with it. All right, thanks for being with me and listening. Let us know your thoughts and comments, and thank you very much for watching our video.